The doctor thought I'd lost my mind when I stepped forward. You understand what you're volunteering for? This patient has no ID, no family, no way to compensate you. And your blood work shows signs of. She paused, eyes dropping to the bruises circling my wrists. Are you certain about this? But she didn't understand that the man bleeding out 3 rooms away was dying the same way I'd been dying for 3 years, alone, invisible, convinced no one would notice when he disappeared. If giving him my kidney meant my existence finally mattered, then maybe the surgery table was exactly where I belonged. So I signed the forms. And I never imagined that 1 week later, when men in black suits would storm our recovery room and nurses would gasp at a name that made my blood freeze, I'd realize the stranger wasn't just anyone. I'd been sitting in this ER corridor for an hour, pressing stolen ice against my ribs. Marcus had thrown me into the counter that morning. When the trauma alert screamed through the halls, unidentified male, critical condition, kidney failure, we need O negative, I looked down at my hospital bracelet. O negative. The rarest type. My hands were shaking as I stood up. The first blow came before I'd even turned around. Marcus's fist caught me in the lower back, kidney shot, the kind that drops you to your knees and empties your lungs in one silent gasp. I hit the kitchen floor, hands scrambling for purchase on the tile that was still sticky from where I'd mopped last night. You think I wouldn't find out? His voice was quiet. That was always worse than the yelling. The quiet meant he'd moved past anger into something colder. Something that planned. You think I wouldn't smell him on you? I hadn't been near anyone. I'd gone to the corner store for milk. That was it. But the truth didn't matter anymore. It never had. His boot found my ribs. Once. Twice. The third kick made something crack. Not break, not yet, but that warning snap that said the next one would. I curled tighter, making myself small, making myself invisible. The tricks you learn when you've been someone's punching bag for 3 years. You're nothing, Marcus hissed, crouching down to fist his hand in my hair, yanking my head back so I had to look at him. His eyes were flat. Empty. Say it. I'm nothing, I whispered. He smiled. That's right. The shower started running 5 minutes later. I heard him humming. That's when I moved. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the doorknob. I didn't grab my phone. Didn't grab my wallet. Didn't grab anything except the jacket by the door because it was November and I was already shaking and I couldn't tell if it was from cold or shock or the certainty that if I came back here, I wouldn't leave again. Metropolitan General was a 40-minute walk. I made it in 25. The triage nurse took one look at me and pointed to a chair. Someone will be with you shortly. No questions. No concern. Just another broken Omega in a city full of them. The plastic chair was the same gray as everything else in this place. Walls. Floor. Future. I pressed the stolen ice against my ribs and stared at the water-stained ceiling tiles and thought about how easy it would be to just not go back. To walk out of here and keep walking until I hit the river. Until I didn't have to be Marcus's nothing anymore. I was still thinking about it when the trauma alarm went off. Code red. Unidentified alpha, critical condition, GSW to the abdomen, acute kidney failure. Patient is O negative. Repeat, we need an O negative donor immediately or this patient will not survive the hour. My fingers drifted to the hospital bracelet on my wrist. The one from my last visit here. The one that said O negative in smudged blue ink. I stood up. My ribs screamed. I walked to the nurse's station anyway. I'm a match, I said. The nurse stared at me like I just volunteered to jump off the roof. You want to donate? She glanced down at her clipboard, then back at me, eyes catching on the bruises that were already darkening along my jaw. Sir, do you understand what you're offering? This is major surgery. Nephrectomy. Would be removing one of your kidneys permanently. I understand. The patient has no identification. No family. No way to compensate you for the organ or the medical expenses or... I don't want compensation. She blinked. Behind her, I could hear controlled chaos erupting. Doctors shouting orders, machines beeping urgently, the metallic crash of a gurney being wheeled past at a run. Someone was dying back there. Someone who probably had people who loved him, who'd miss him, who'd notice when he was gone. Not like me. I need to get a doctor, the nurse said finally, and disappeared through the double doors. The doctor who came out 3 minutes later looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Dr. Reeves, her badge said. Trauma surgery. She had blood on her scrubs and exhaustion carved into the lines around her eyes. You're O negative? She asked without preamble. Yes. And you understand that kidney donation is irreversible? That you'll be living with one kidney for the rest of your life? That there are risks, infection, bleeding, blood clots, damage to surrounding organs. I understand. She studied me for a long moment. Saw the same things everyone saw, the bruises, the way I held myself too carefully, the hollowness in my eyes that came from 3 years of being told I was nothing. Why? She asked quietly. Because I'm already dying, I wanted to say. Because Marcus is going to kill me eventually and at least this way someone lives. Because I've spent 3 years disappearing and maybe, just maybe, if I save this stranger, my life will have mattered to someone. Because I'm a match, I said instead. Dr. Reeves nodded slowly. I need you to sign consent forms. A lot of them. And I need to run blood work to confirm compatibility. If you change your mind. I won't. The forms were endless. Pages and pages of legal language that blurred together. Risks. Complications. Liability waivers. My hand shook so badly the pen kept slipping, leaving jagged signatures that didn't look like my name anymore. But I signed every page. A nurse drew blood. Rushed it to the lab. Came back 20 minutes later with a nod. Perfect match, Dr. Reeves said, and something in her expression shifted. Relief, maybe. Or disbelief that this was actually happening. We need to prep you now. Both of you are going into surgery in the next 30 minutes. They gave me a hospital gown. Started in 4. Wheeled me into a pre-op room where I could see him for the first time through a glass partition, the stranger I was saving. He was unconscious, pale as death, hooked up to machines that were probably the only thing keeping him alive. He looked alone. Just like me. At least I'll have saved someone, I whispered as they injected something into my fore that made the world go soft and distant. The last thing I saw before the anesthesia pulled me under was the ceiling tiles sliding past as they wheeled us both toward the operating room. Together. 2 strangers bound by blood type and desperation. I didn't even know his name. Pain woke me. Not the sharp, immediate kind that comes from fists and boots. This was deeper. Surgical. The kind that reminded you someone had cut you open and taken something vital. I blinked against the fluorescent lights, trying to orient myself. Hospital room. Machines beeping steadily. 4 in my arm. And, you're awake. I turned my head too fast and immediately regretted it. The man in the bed next to mine was watching me with dark, intent eyes. He looked better than when I'd seen him through the glass partition, color in his face now, though still pale. Still weak. But alive. Because of me. How long? My voice came out rough, throat raw from the intubation. 2 days. You had complications. Bleeding. He shifted slightly, wincing. They kept you under longer. 2 days. I'd been unconscious for 2 days while Marcus. My heart rate spiked. The monitor beside my bed started beeping faster. Hey. The stranger's voice was surprisingly gentle for an alpha. You're safe. There are guards outside. No one's getting in here who shouldn't. I noticed them then, through the narrow window in the door. 2 men in black suits, standing like sentries. Not hospital security. Private. Who are you? I whispered. He smiled, just slightly. Adrian. No last name. Just Adrian. Like that explained the armed guards and the private recovery room that definitely wasn't standard for public hospital patients. You saved my life, Adrian said quietly. Why? Because I wanted to matter. Because I was dying anyway. Because you looked as alone as I felt. You needed a kidney, I said instead. I had one. His eyes searched my face, reading all the things I wasn't saying. Thank you, Elias. I startled. How did you? It was on your chart. He gestured vaguely toward the foot of my bed. Elias Reed. No emergency contact. No next of kin listed. Just like him, I almost said. But my phone started buzzing on the bedside table, loud and insistent in the quiet room, and my stomach dropped. Marcus. The screen lit up with his name. Then again. And again. Message after message flooding in, making the phone rattle against the plastic surface. Where are you? Answer me. You fucking left. You're dead when you get back. My hands were shaking. I couldn't reach the phone. Couldn't make it stop. Couldn't. Adrian moved. It clearly hurt him. I saw the grimace, the way his hand pressed against his own bandages, but he leaned over the small space between our beds and picked up my phone. Read the messages. His expression went very still. This is him, he said. Not a question. I couldn't answer. My throat had closed up. Adrian held my gaze for a moment, then powered the phone off. The sudden silence was deafening. You need to heal, he said, setting the phone face down on his own bedside table, well out of my reach in Marcus's threats. Nothing else matters right now. He's not going to do anything. Adrian's voice carried an edge of something I'd never heard directed at me before. Protection. You're under my watch now. And trust me when I say, no one gets past my security. A nurse came in then with food trays. Adrian took both, handed me mine. Eat, he said. You need your strength. And for the first time in 3 years, someone watched over me while I ate. Not to criticize. Not to control. Just to make sure I was okay. They came on the third day. I was dozing when I heard the commotion outside, sharp voices, the guards suddenly standing straighter, and then the door opening to admit 4 people who looked like they'd stepped out of a corporate boardroom. 3 men in suits that probably cost more than a year of my rent. And a woman. She was older, maybe 60, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes like chips of ice. She looked at Adrian first, relief flashing across her face so quickly I almost missed it, and then her gaze slid to me. I felt pinned. Examined. Found wanting. Adrian. Her voice was crisp, controlled. We've been searching for you for 5 days. Mother. Adrian's tone was carefully neutral. I'm fine. Mother. Oh God. Fine? One of the men stepped forward, tablet in hand. You were shot twice, nearly died from kidney failure, and have been off-grid in a public hospital under a false name. The board is in chaos. The stock has dropped 6 points. We have reporters camped outside 3 of our properties trying to confirm whether you're alive or... Enough. The woman, Adrian's mother, held up one hand. The man went silent immediately. She turned back to Adrian. Who authorized the organ transplant? I did, Dr. Reeves said from the doorway. I hadn't even heard her come in. The patient was critical. We had minutes, not hours. Mr. Doe, she emphasized the name Adrian had apparently given, would have died without immediate intervention. And this donor? The eyes-eyed woman looked at me again. Who is he? His name is Elias Reed, Adrian said before anyone else could answer. And he saved my life. The way he said it made something shift in the room. A claiming. A line drawn. One of the suited men was already typing on his tablet. Elias Reed, age 26, no registered employment, no fixed address, no, he paused, fingers stilling. His expression changed. He has a registered domestic partner. Marcus Cole. My stomach dropped. Is that true? Adrian's mother asked, gaze sharpening on me like a scalpel. I couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. Mrs. Blackwell, Dr. Reeves interjected carefully. Perhaps this conversation should continue outside. Blackwell? The word escaped before I could stop it. Adrian's eyes met mine. Apologetic. Resigned. Adrian Blackwell, one of the men said, like he was making an introduction at a business meeting. Heir to Blackwell Industries. Your donor just gave a kidney to one of the most powerful alphas in the country. The room tilted. Blackwell Industries. I'd seen their logo on buildings downtown. On news reports. They owned half the city's real estate. Had contracts with the government. Were worth billions. Adrian said softly, reading my expression. Yes. His mother's lips thinned. We need to discuss compensation. Confidentiality agreements. And I'll need a full background check on Mr. Reed before. No. Adrian's voice went hard. Elias isn't signing anything. And you're not investigating him. Adrian, be reasonable. We don't know anything about this person. He could be resting. Adrian cut her off. Which is what he needs to do. What we both need to do. So I suggest you take this outside. For a moment, mother and son stared at each other. Then she nodded, once, sharply. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. Gentlemen. They filed out. But before the door closed, I saw them, cameras. Flashes. Reporters shouting questions from down the hall. Mr. Blackwell. Is it true you were the victim of an assassination attempt? Who's the donor? Is Blackwell Industries issuing a statement? The door clicked shut, muffling the chaos. I looked at Adrian, this stranger who wasn't a stranger anymore, who was apparently worth billions, who had a mother who looked at me like I was something dirty her son had tracked in on his shoe. I can't, my voice cracked. People like me don't save people like you. You already did, Adrian said quietly. But we both knew that didn't matter. Not in his world. Not in the world I just glimpsed through that open door. They discharged me on day 7. Adrian had argued. I'd heard him through the wall, his voice low and intense as he spoke with his mother and the hospital administrator. But the reality was simple. My surgery was successful, my recovery on track, and public hospitals didn't keep charity cases in private rooms indefinitely. Especially not charity cases with no insurance and no way to pay. Come with me, Adrian had said that morning, standing despite the pain it clearly caused him. I have a penthouse. Security. You'd be safe. Safe. The word felt foreign in my mouth. I can't. I was already pulling on the clothes they brought me, my same blood-stained shirt from a week ago, now clean but still marked with what had happened. I don't belong in your world. Elias. Thank you for everything. I couldn't look at him. If I looked at him, I might actually say yes, and that would be worse. Because eventually he'd realize what his mother had seen immediately, that I was nothing. And when he threw me out, it would hurt so much worse than anything Marcus had ever done. Better to leave now. On my terms. The apartment building looked smaller than I remembered. Dirtier. The elevator was broken again, so I climbed 4 flights of stairs, each step pulling at my incision, and stood outside the door with my hand on the knob. I could still turn around. Could walk back down those stairs and... The door opened. Marcus stood there, eyes scanning me up and down, expression unreadable. Where the hell have you been? Clinic. The lie came automatically. Free clinic downtown. I told you my ribs were bad. For a week. They kept me for observation. Possible internal bleeding. I pulled up my shirt slightly, showing him the bandages. Not a lie, technically. Just, not the whole truth. Something flickered in his eyes. Suspicion. But he stepped back, let me in. The apartment felt wrong. Smaller than before. Darker. The air was stale, heavy with the smell of old takeout and Marcus's cologne that used to make me feel safe and now just made my throat close up. After a week of clean hospital air and Adrian's gentle presence, this place felt like a tomb. You should have called, Marcus said, closing the door. Locking it. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home made my heart race. They took my phone, remember? You turned it off. Right. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to flinch. You seem different. I'm tired. No. His hand came up, gripping my chin, forcing me to look at him. You smell different. Hospital soap. Antiseptic. And probably, faintly, Adrian's scent from the shared recovery room. It's the medication, I said quickly. They gave me antibiotics. It messes with. His grip tightened, fingers digging into my jaw hard enough to bruise. Don't lie to me. I'm not. Where's your phone? At the clinic. They said I could pick it up when. You're not going back there. He released me, stepped back. In fact, you're not going anywhere. Not until I figure out what you're hiding. Marcus, I'm not hiding anything. Then you won't mind staying home for a while. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Just until you're fully recovered. I'll take care of you. Make sure you rest. Make sure you don't wander off again. He said it like it was concern. Like it was love. But I heard the threat underneath. I was a prisoner now. And the worst part was, after a week of kindness, after Adrian's protection and gentle words and the promise of safety, coming back to this felt like dying all over again. Only this time, I knew exactly what I was missing. Marcus left for work on day 3 of my captivity. He'd been circling me like a predator for 72 hours, watching everything I did, questioning every breath. But his supervisor had called, threatened to fire him if he didn't show up, and Marcus needed the paycheck more than he needed to guard me. Don't even think about leaving, he'd said, standing in the doorway. I've got cameras now. He didn't. I checked. But the threat was enough to keep me frozen on the couch, staring at the door he'd locked from the outside. The knock came 20 minutes later. Soft. Professional. 3 measured taps. I approached the door like it might explode. Peered through the peephole. A man in a black suit stood in the hallway. Not Marcus. Not anyone I recognized. But something about the way he stood, alert, controlled, dangerous, reminded me of Adrian's guards at the hospital. Elias Reed. His voice was low, barely audible through the door. Who's asking? I work for Adrian Blackwell. I have a delivery. My heart stopped. I can't. Marcus locked the door. I can't open it. A pause. Then, step back. I heard the lock click. Once. Twice. The deadbolt sliding free like it had never been locked at all. The door opened 6 inches. The man's hand appeared, holding a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. Mr. Blackwell wanted you to have a way out. Everything you need is in here. Hide it well. I can't accept. You already did. He pressed the box into my hands. The watch has GPS. The phone has 1 contact. The button is for emergencies only. Press it and we'll be here in under 5 minutes. Do you understand? I nodded, mute. Good. He glanced down the hallway. Lock the door after me. And Elias? Use it before you need to. Then he was gone, and I was standing there with a box that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Inside was exactly what he'd said. A smartphone, sleek and black, with a single contact saved, Adrian. A watch that looked expensive but plain enough not to draw attention. And a small black button, no bigger than a coin, with adhesive backing. I hit the button inside the bathroom vent. The watch I wore immediately, pulling my sleeve down over it. The phone. Where could I possibly hide a phone that Marcus wouldn't find? I was still trying to figure it out when I heard his key in the lock. Too early. He wasn't supposed to be back for hours. I shoved the phone under the couch cushion, heart hammering, and barely made it back to my spot before the door opened. Marcus's expression was thunderous. They sent me home. Said I was too distracted. His eyes landed on me, and something in them made my blood freeze. What did you do while I was gone? Nothing. I slept. Liar. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed my arm, yanked me up. His nose went to my throat, scenting. Someone was here. I can smell them. No one was. He threw me aside and started searching. Tore through the kitchen drawers. Upended the coffee table. And then he grabbed the couch cushion. The phone clattered to the floor. For a moment, we both just stared at it. Adrian's name glowing on the locked screen. Then Marcus picked it up. Read the name. And when he looked at me again, his eyes had gone completely black. Blackwell. His voice was eerily calm. You've been with Adrian Blackwell. Marcus, please. You let another alpha touch you. He was advancing now, phone crushed in his fist. You let him inside you. You let him mark what's mine. He didn't, I just gave him. I'm going to kill you, Marcus said, almost conversationally. And then I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of whore you are. His hand found my throat. And I realized I'd left the panic button in the bathroom. His hand was on my throat, cutting off air, and I clawed at his wrist uselessly. Marcus slammed me against the wall hard enough to crack plaster, his other hand already tearing at my shirt. You think you're too good for me now? Spit flecked his lips. You think some rich alpha wants you? You're nothing. You're mine. He forced my head to the side, exposing my throat. My scent gland. The place where a bond mark would be permanent, irreversible, a claim that would tie me to him forever. No, I choked out, but his teeth were already grazing my skin. The bathroom. The panic button. 6 feet away. Might as well have been 6 miles. Marcus's grip shifted for just a second as he adjusted his angle, and I twisted, hard. Broke free. Stumbled toward the bathroom with my vision swimming, Marcus's roar of rage behind me. I hit the bathroom doorframe. Fell. Crawled the last 2 feet to the vent and ripped it open with bloody fingers. The button was sticky with adhesive. I pressed it. Nothing happened. No alarm. No sound. Marcus grabbed my ankle, dragged me backward across the tile. You stupid. The apartment door exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. The whole frame splintering as something hit it with inhuman force, and then there were people everywhere, men in black tactical gear, moving with military precision, and in the center of them, Adrian. He looked like death incarnate. Still pale from surgery, moving like every step hurt, but his eyes were locked on Marcus with an expression I'd never seen before. Murderous. Get your hands off him, Adrian said, voice deadly quiet. Marcus actually laughed. This is my Omega. My property. You can't just. Adrian moved. I'd never seen an alpha move that fast. 1 second he was in the doorway. The next, his hand was around Marcus's throat, slamming him into the wall with enough force to crack bones. His not property, Adrian growled. And you're never touching him again. 2 of the tactical team members pulled Adrian back before he could do something that would land him in prison. They wrestled Marcus down, zip ties appearing like magic around his wrists. Adrian Blackwell, Marcus spat blood onto the floor. Of course. You think you can buy him? His trash. Broken. Nothing. One of the guards hit him. Not hard. Just enough to shut him up. Elias. Adrian was kneeling beside me now, hands hovering like he was afraid I'd break if he touched me. Can you hear me? I nodded. Or tried to. Everything felt distant, muffled. We need medical, Adrian barked to someone behind him. Then, softer, to me, I've got you. You're safe now. I heard sirens. Police. Saw uniforms flooding into the apartment, badges flashing. Someone was reading Marcus his rights. Assault. Unlawful imprisonment. Human trafficking. There's more, one of Adrian's security team said, holding up a laptop. Evidence of financial exploitation. Medical neglect. This has been going on for years. Years. 3 years of my life disappeared into Marcus's control. Elias, I need to move you. Adrian's voice pulled me back. The paramedics are here, but I'm not letting you out of my sight. Is that okay? I managed to nod. He lifted me like I weighed nothing, cradling me against his chest despite the fact that he'd had major surgery a week ago. I could feel his heart hammering against my ear. I've got you, he murmured again as we passed through the ruined doorway. You're safe. I promise. You're safe. And for the first time in 3 years, I believed it. The penthouse had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the entire city. I spent the first night in the closet. Not because Adrian told me to. He'd shown me to a guest room with a bed bigger than Marcus's entire apartment, soft sheets that probably cost more than I'd made in a year, and told me to rest. But when he'd closed the door and left me alone, the space felt too open. Too exposed. Too much. So I'd taken a blanket and curled up in the walk-in closet with the door cracked just enough to breathe. That's where Adrian found me in the morning. He didn't say anything. Just set a plate of food outside the closet door and walked away. I found him in the kitchen an hour later, making coffee. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'll sleep in the bed tonight, You'll sleep wherever you feel safe." He handed me a mug. "No rules here, Elias. Except one, you're allowed to exist." The therapist started coming twice a week. Dr. Chen, a small beta woman with kind eyes who didn't flinch when I told her everything. She taught me words for what had happened. Coercive control. Intimate partner violence. Complex trauma. "You're not broken," she said during our third session. "You're injured. There's a difference." I wanted to believe her. The hoarding started on day 4. I'd taken extra food from breakfast, hidden it in my nightstand drawer. Then dinner rolls. Then granola bars from the pantry. Adrian found my stash when he came to check on me. "I'll replace it," I said immediately, already calculating what I could give up to pay him back. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Elias." He sat down on the edge of the bed, careful to keep distance between us. "Take whatever you want. The kitchen is yours. All of it. But you don't have to hide food here. There's always going to be more." "But what if?" "There's no what if. This is your home now. For as long as you want it." I cried for the first time that night. Real crying, not the silent kind I'd learned with Marcus. Loud, messy, 3 years of pain finally breaking free. Adrian sat outside my door the entire time, not coming in, not leaving. Just there. The raised voices happened on week 2. Adrian was on a conference call, someone was arguing with him about a merger, and his voice got sharp. Commanding. I was under the dining table before I'd even realized I'd moved. The call ended. Footsteps approached. Then stopped. "Elias." Adrian's voice was soft again. Gentle. "I'm going to sit down now, okay? You don't have to come out. I just want you to know I'm here." He sat against the far wall, giving me space, and started talking. About nothing important. About his day, about a bird he'd seen on the balcony, about how the coffee maker was broken and he'd had to drink tea. Normal things. Safe things. I came out after 10 minutes. Sat across from him. "I'm trying," I whispered. "I know. And you're doing so well." His mother came on week 3. I heard her before I saw her, heels clicking on marble, that same crisp voice from the hospital. "Adrian, we need to discuss the media situation. They're speculating about your mystery companion and..." She stopped in the doorway to the living room. I was curled on the couch, one of Adrian's sweaters wrapped around me, reading a book he'd given me. Adrian sat in the armchair across from me, working on his laptop but glancing up every few minutes to check on me. We looked domestic. Peaceful. "Mother," Adrian said, standing. But she was staring at me. Then at her son. Then back to me. "He's smiling," she said softly. "Adrian, you're smiling." And I realized he was. A real smile, small but genuine, the kind that reached his eyes. "Yes," Adrian said simply. His mother's expression cracked, just slightly. She looked at me differently this time. Not like trash. Like someone who'd given her son something she thought was lost forever. "Tea?" Adrian offered. She nodded. "Yes. I'd like that." 6 months later, I stood in a courtroom and watched Marcus get sentenced to 15 years. He'd looked at me across that space, tried to catch my eye, mouth my name. But I didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Just stood there with Adrian's hand steady on my lower back and felt nothing but relief when they led Marcus away in chains. "It's over," Adrian murmured as we left the courthouse. Not quite. But close. The Omega Advocacy Center was in a converted brownstone downtown. I started volunteering 3 days a week, answering crisis calls, helping people find safe housing, sitting across from survivors who looked the way I used to look, hollow, hopeless, convinced they deserved the pain. You got out, a young Omega named Jason said during one of our sessions. How? Someone gave me a chance to matter, I said. And then I learned I always mattered. I just couldn't see it yet. He cried. I held his hand. Told him about the panic button, the security team, the moment Adrian had broken down that door. You're safe now, I promised. And someday, you'll believe it. The proposal happened on a Tuesday. No fanfare. No grand gesture. Just Adrian and me in the kitchen of our new house, a small place on the coast where you could hear waves instead of sirens, making breakfast. He was teaching me to make omelets. I kept breaking the yolks. Elias, he said, turning off the stove. I know, I'll get it eventually. Marry me. I dropped the spatula. He was holding a ring. Simple platinum band, no diamonds, nothing flashy. Just solid and real and permanent. You don't have to answer now, Adrian said quickly. I know we're still healing, and there's no rush, but I wanted you to know that this, us, it's not temporary for me. It's never been temporary. I kissed him instead of answering. Tasted salt from my own tears and his smile against my lips. Yes, I whispered. Yes. His mother sent an engagement gift. A handwritten note that said simply, Welcome to the family. E. Blackwell. I cried over that for an hour. Now, 3 months after the proposal, I stood on our private beach watching Adrian throw a tennis ball for the rescue dog we'd adopted last month. Luna, a golden retriever mix who'd been abused and abandoned and had chosen me the moment we'd walked into the shelter. She understood. So did I. My hand drifted to my stomach. Still flat, but not for much longer. We'd found out yesterday. A daughter, the doctor had said. Healthy. Due in 7 months. Adrian didn't know yet. I was waiting for the right moment. Luna bounded back with the ball, dropped it at Adrian's feet. He laughed, a sound I'd heard more in the past 6 months than in all our time before, and threw it again. The sun was setting, painting the sky golden, pink and purple. The waves rolled in steady and predictable and safe. And I stood there, this broken Omega who'd given away a kidney to a dying stranger, and realized I wasn't broken anymore. We saved each other. I whispered to the wind, to the baby growing inside me, to the life I never thought I'd deserve. Adrian looked up, caught me watching, smiled. Come here, he called, and I went. No hesitation. No fear. Just home.